The richest family in the history of American money. The most famous name in the whole literature of conspiracy. Standard Oil, the Federal Reserve, the foundations, the banks. If the Illuminati has a headquarters family, every reader of this book knows which name it is. And on page 111 of the chapter about them, the author stops, mid-book, and tells us something remarkable. Much of my material on the Rockefellers, he says, was lost this year. I don't have time to research it again. And then, he wrote the chapter anyway. Tonight, the Rockefellers, read and checked, page by page, the chapter he wrote, and then the chapter he didn't. 2 things to watch for. First, the most precise numbers in these 9 pages, down to the dollar, are all real, and once you see where they come from, you will understand how this entire book was made. And second, the darkest sentence in this chapter is aimed at a real FBI agent, by name. And of all the agents in the Bureau, the author chose the one man whose actual job was checking claims exactly like his. We will get there. Bring the red pen. The rules, for anyone joining tonight. Every claim is checked against 3 tiers of sources. Biographies and primary records first, quality journalism second, open references last. Every claim gets one of 5 verdicts, from fully confirmed down to unfalsifiable, the label for claims built so that no evidence could ever touch them. The checking happens live as we read, nothing slips past. Before the first claim, look at the shape of this chapter, because the shape is a finding. It is not one chapter, it is 2 newsletter articles stapled together, and the author says so. The first ran in his newsletter in December of 1992. The second came later. Between them sits a loose essay on why he covers 13 bloodlines at all. So the chapter starts twice, ends twice, and changes its mind halfway through about what it is. 6 of its 9 pages are about religion. And the things you came for? Standard Oil, the Federal Reserve, the breakup, the medical schools are not in it. Any of it. We checked. Hold that thought. At the end of the reading, we will supply the missing chapter ourselves. And the confession. Page 111, the author's own preface. Much of my own material on the Rockefeller family, quote, was lost this year, and I don't have the time to go back and research it again. 1 page later. Quote, my notes are lost, but suffice it to say. Twice in 2 pages. A book subtitled 20 Years of Research tells us the research is gone, and he is writing from memory. That is not our framing. It is his. So here is the wager for tonight. Watch what happens when he has a book open in front of him, and watch what happens when he is remembering. The difference between those 2 men is this entire episode. Page 105. One of the 13 satanic bloodlines that rule the world, the chapter opens, is the Rockefeller bloodline. Stamped once, at the top, the way we always stamp the frame. No ledger, no archive, no witness could ever test the kingship of a secret world government. UNFALSIFIABLE. Then the numbers start. There are around 190 members of the family carrying the Rockefeller name. Check. The family's own documented gatherings count the living descendants in the mid-100s. Total, all surnames. A count of 190 carrying just the one name is bigger than the whole documented pool it claims to be a slice of, and no census, book, or family office has ever printed it. Unsupported. The Illuminati draws its lifeblood from around 500 very powerful families worldwide. 30 years, no roster, no leak. Unsupported. Next. No one knows how many trusts the Rockefellers have. Hidden trusts within secret trusts, between 200 and several thousand of them. Here the record holds something better than an estimate. Sworn testimony. When Nelson Rockefeller was nominated for the vice presidency in 1974, Congress made the family open the books, the only time it ever happened. What emerged was not several thousand secret trusts. It was 2 great sets of family trusts, from 1934 and 1952, administered from one office on the 56th floor of Rockefeller Center, room 5600. Concentrated, professional, and, under subpoena, countable. Unsupported, and the real answer had been on the public record for 20 years when this book was typed. Then the chapter's best real fact. Nelson Rockefeller, it says, did not pay 1 cent in income taxes in 1970, yet he was perhaps the richest man in the U.S. Check the first half. True. At those same hearings, Nelson disclosed that in 1970 he had paid no federal income tax at all. Deductions and carry-forwards had zeroed out the most famous rich man in American politics. It was a national scandal, printed everywhere. Confirmed. And notice where the confirmable half comes from. public hearings, not hidden knowledge. The second half, richest man in America, his own sworn disclosure puts him nowhere near the Gettys, the Hugheses, the Hunts, mixed. Real fact, inflated frame. Remember that shape. The chapter repeats it all night. The rest of the page is a thesis in 6 numbered items. The Rockefellers control religion in America. The seminaries, the universities, the grants, the publicity, the anti-Christian organizations, and one group called Lucis Trust. 6 items is an essay plan, not a claim. We check every item as it comes. Now the chapter does something almost nothing in this book does. It footnotes. The Sealantic Fund, incorporated 1938, headquartered at 50 West 50th Street in New York. $681,886 in grants in 1964. $1,889,550 in 1969. Purpose: Protestant theological education. President: David Rockefeller. Vice President: Lawrence. The book even pauses to note it's Lawrence, not Lawrence. Check. The fund is real, and everything we can pull matches. The incorporation year, the address, the stated purpose, word for word. Word for word because of the asterisks. The author's own footnotes send us to the Foundation Directory, a public reference book on the shelf of every large library in America, and the language on his page is the directory's language. He copied it, carefully, down to the spelling note, which is exactly what a man does when the book is open in front of him. Confirmed, and it is the wager from Part A paying off on its very first test. With a source open, this author is reliable. Even his aside that Sealantic later shifted to other channels holds up. The fund was folded into the Rockefeller Brothers Fund in 1973. The one thing the directory could not give him is the secrecy the paragraph implies. A foundation that files its grants for publication is many things, and covert is not one of them. The grants list makes the point louder. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund. The chapter reports from a grants index. $41,000 to the Council on Foundations, $100,000 to a Harlem counseling service, $25,000 to a development group, and $240,000 to the Trilateral Commission. We pulled the fund's own annual reports. Every dollar figure is real. The book's year is off. The index's dollars are right. And savor it. The Trilateral Commission, the great engine of one world conspiracy, appears in this chapter exactly once, as a line item the author transcribed from a library book. The secret world government publishes its funding, indexed, to the dollar. Confirmed, the grants. The sinister reading is a mood, not a claim. One more line from this page. An ex-Satanist, we are told, met with the Pope, who coordinates his actions with the Illuminati's instructions. One anonymous informant, one unrecorded meeting, no date. Built so no evidence could touch it. UNFALSIFIABLE. Item 1. Seminaries. The Union Theological Seminary, the chapter says, has operated from Rockefeller funds. Check. John D. Rockefeller Jr. gave Union millions across the decades. $20 million in one 1950s gift, and built Riverside Church practically next door. Funded, lavishly, confirmed. Operated from run by is the word doing the smuggling. A donor is not a director. Item 2. The universities and a darker story. In 1952, Congressman Eugene Cox headed a committee investigating the tax-exempt foundations, and the book says, for some reason encountered stiff opposition, and for some reason got sick and died. The facts. Real committee, real investigation, and Eugene Cox did die that December of a heart attack before the work was done. Confirmed. The dates and the death. The insinuation, because for some reason, is doing all the work in that sentence. Cox was ill before the committee convened. No investigator or historian has ever suggested otherwise, and the committee's own report, filed weeks after his death, largely cleared the foundations. The death is real. The murder is a whisper the author leaves the reader to write for him. Unsupported. His successor, the book Prince Reese, the record spells Reese, Congressman Carroll Reese of Tennessee, with counsel Renee Wormser, reopened the investigation, and Rockefeller's henchmen and newspapers, we are told, did their best to destroy him. Check. Reese, Wormser, and the committee are all real. The two quoted conclusions are on Wormser's pages, but look closely at the first, the one about an actual conspiracy among leading educators. In Wormser's book, it is a footnote, quoting a different man's book about educators, not foundations. and Wormser himself writes elsewhere that his argument stands even in the absence of any conspiracy. The book promotes another author's footnote into Wormser's verdict, mixed, the quotations. As for the destruction of Carol Reese, his committee collapsed in public. One of its own members denounced its methods. The press treated it as an embarrassment, and it folded after hearing almost no witnesses. Reese himself served in Congress until the day he died, 7 years later. You do not need henchmen to explain a committee that discredited itself on procedure, mixed. Then the section's biggest number, the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations, stimulated 2/3 of the total endowment funding of all higher learning in the first third of the century. We traced it. It is not in Wormser. It is not in any committee report. It surfaces, uncited, in Gary Allen's Rockefeller file. The paperback this whole section quietly leans on. The stat, the quotes, even their order match Allen's chapter. The dominance was real. The fraction is an advocate's number with no floor under it. Unsupported. And the NEA, largely financed, says the book, by Rockefeller and Carnegie money. The record says the NEA ran on member dues, and the foundation-funded education body was a different council altogether. Contradicted. Its famous quotation, "A dying laissez-faire must be completely destroyed, all of us, including the owners, subjected to a large degree of social control," traces to a paper by one educator at a 1934 conference, a man who later became the association's executive secretary. Conservative pamphlets have carried it ever since, one of them into this page. A real quotation from the wrong kind of document, laundered through retellings. Mixed. And Grolier, the encyclopedia company, the book seats Avery Rockefeller Jr. on its board, present tense. He was real. He was a Grolier senior vice president, and he had been dead for 16 years when this book called him a sitting director. The Lost Notes, Remembering a Man Alive. Mixed and quietly perfect. Item 3. The grants, and here the chapter produces what it plainly regards as a confession from the family's own mouth. On January 31, 1945, John D. Rockefeller Jr. addressed the Protestant Council of New York and told them Christianity needed to become the Church of the Living God. Many listening, the author writes, may not have realized that he and other top Illuminati consider themselves gods, that John D. was cryptically inviting Christianity to serve him, a living God. Check. The speech is real. The Protestant Council published it. The text descends from an address Jr. first gave in 1917. Confirmed, the event. Now the phrase the whole reading hangs on. Open a Bible. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15. The house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. The phrase the author hears as a Rockefeller, announcing his own divinity, is a direct quotation of the Apostle Paul, among the most standard church language in the English tongue, spoken to a room of Protestant clergymen who would have recognized it instantly. And the sentence right after it, in the published speech, names Christ as the one to be worshipped. The book found a Bible verse in a churchman's speech and heard a Satanist introducing himself. Contradicted, and of every correction in this series, this one took the least research. The citation has been in print for 19 centuries. Item 4. Publicity. Times board chairman Andrew Heiskell, says the chapter, was associated with David Rockefeller. A real chairman, a real acquaintance of boards, and a claim so soft it cannot be stamped. Associated with is a shrug wearing a suit. Henry J. Fisher, an Illuminatus of the 6th level, ran McCall's from 1917 to 1956. Fisher was real and did run McCall's. The 40-year reign we could not verify, and the 6th level of anything no one could ever verify. UNFALSIFIABLE, the level, and file the man under real name wrong details. Then the argument gets specific, and the specifics start half-checking. The establishment media, says the chapter, boosted Anton LaVey into prominence. The Daily News on America's first satanic wedding in January 67, a warm McCall story in March of 70, and Time, June 19, 1972, The Occult, a Substitute Faith. Check. The McCall's piece and the Time issue are real, title and date exact, clippings file precision. The wedding is real too, and the press did feast on it, but it happened on the 1st of February, and the specific Daily News story we could not find. Mixed. 2 dates ring true, one is off, and the trail smells of a clippings file copied slightly wrong. The leap is the claim that a press which finds a photogenic Satanist good copy is a press taking orders from a family. Editors chase spectacle. That is the whole documented story of tabloid journalism. Unsupported. The same paragraph sneers at the free publicity given the book's words, 33rd degree Mason Billy Graham. 2 claims in 1 clause. Graham the Mason. No lodge roll, no Scottish Rite record, no biography. His organization denied it flatly for decades. The claim's best-known source turned out to be a clerical error on a Masonic website, corrected with an apology. Contradicted. But Graham made by the press. The author is standing beside one of the best documented stories in American media and cannot see it. In 1949, William Randolph Hearst saw the young preacher filling a Los Angeles tent and wired his editors 2 words that became legend: Puff Graham. The Hearst chain inflated Graham to national fame in weeks, and Graham told the story on himself for the rest of his life. A media empire really did manufacture an evangelist, on the record by name, and the book traded that for a lodge number it could not source. The chapter adds that the Chase Manhattan Bank helped Graham's New York crusade. The documented link is one Chase executive serving on the Crusades committee, personally, a banker in a pew, not a bank on a mission, mixed. And Charles Tazy Russell, founder of the Watchtower, a Knights Templar Mason. In the very sermon this literature always cites, Russell says, "In so many words, I have never been a Mason." The confusion lives on a pyramid monument put up near his grave after his death, bearing his movement's own cross and crown, not a Templar mark. Contradicted. By the man himself. The item closes with its longest chain. Lou Wasserman, head of MCA, which owns G.P. Putnam's Sons, publisher of von Daniken's anti-Christian UFO books, and Wasserman sits on the Rockefeller University Council. Chains have joints. Check the dates. Putnam published Chariots of the Gods in America at the end of the 60s. MCA did not buy Putnam until 1975. Half a decade after the book, the chain exists to explain, and 2 years after Wasserman even took the chairmanship. The publisher the theory needs him controlling was not his when the deed was done. Contradicted by a corporate calendar. And Marvel Comics, owned then by Cadence Industries, whose directors, the book says, sit under David Rockefeller in the CFR, which is why Marvel published The Son of Satan. The Comic is Real, 1973, a horror boom title in which the devil's son fights evil. The Satan character is one of the good guys. The boardroom chain from David Rockefeller to a spinner rack, unsupported. Somewhere in this paragraph, the world's most powerful family is micromanaging drugstore horror comics, and the sentence refutes itself on the way out. Item 5. The anti-Christian organizations. Maurice Strong, a good friend of the Rockefellers, promoting Mother Gaia worship. Check. Strong's environmental career is real and enormous. He ran the Stockholm Summit and the Rio Earth Summit. The Rockefeller friendship is the soft part. The claimed foundation trusteeship appears only in partisan sources, and Mother Gaia worship is a critic's label for environmentalism, not a documented liturgy. Mixed. Reverend Moon has been very much loved by the Rockefellers, who have been helping him. Decades of congressional hearings, a federal tax trial, and a mountain of journalism examined Moon's money, and no Rockefeller appears anywhere in it. Unsupported. The book lists 4 famous men who endorsed Moon, a Kennedy, 2 senators, a conservative editor. Of the 4, exactly 1 shows up in the record at all, and the real episode being garbled runs the other way. When Moon went to prison for tax fraud, a broad coalition filed support for his appeal on religious liberty grounds. Churches and civil liberties groups defending a defendant's rights inverted here into friendship. Mixed. Then, the Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship, a real mid-century organization of ministers and psychics, exactly as strange as the book says, with Marcus Bach, who really did hold a Rockefeller Foundation fellowship in the 30s, and the psychologist Gardner Murphy, whose resume, the UNESCO consultancy in India, the research directorship at the Menninger Foundation checks out line by line. Even the book's Masonic footnotes here. Carl Menninger, the financier Clement Stone. Hold up. Confirmed. The resumes. This is the open book author again, copying competently. What the paragraph wants the resumes to mean, that psychology is led mainly by occultists, that a writing fellowship in 1934 bought a psychic fellowship in 1956, lives entirely in the space between the facts. Unsupported. And the Federal Council of Churches, financed to a large extent by Rockefeller money. Junior really was the ecumenical movement's great bankroller, millions into its grand interchurch campaigns. But the council itself shows one documented Rockefeller grant of $30,000 for a study. Right patron, wrong ledger line, mixed. Item 6, the destination, Lucis Trust. David Rockefeller, the chapter says flatly, is part of Lucis Trust's management. And Lucis Trust publishes Alice Bailey, whose externalization of the hierarchy lays out the plan, whose organization was formerly called Lucifer, whose president, Bailey, led the Theosophical Society, and whose Lord of the World, on page 107, is Sanat Kumara. Sanat, the book notes, a scrambling of Satan. Layers, in order. The true and wonderful. Lucis Trust is real, publishes Bailey to this day, and really was incorporated in 1922 as the Lucifer Publishing Company, the old Theosophical Lightbearer sense, renamed within 3 years, presumably on noticing what everyone else would assume. Its offices really did sit at 866 United Nations Plaza. An esoteric publisher named for Lucifer across the street from the UN, documented in Stranger Than Fiction. Confirmed. Now the page citation. And here's the part nobody expects us to say. We pulled Bailey's book and turned to page 107, and the table the author describes is there. 3 centers. Shambhala, ruled by Sanat Kumara, the Lord of the World. The hierarchy, ruled by the Christ. And humanity, ruled in black and white, by Lucifer, son of the morning, the prodigal son. The book's reading of the page is accurate, and we stamp it so. Confirmed. But hold the page closer. It is an essay from September 1939 about centers Bailey believed exist now, not a schedule for a coming takeover. Sanat is not a scrambling of anything. It is Sanskrit. It means eternal, and it is older than the English language. Contradicted. And we ran the count. Across the 744 pages of the book the chapter cites, the word Lucifer appears exactly once. In that table, glossed as the prodigal son, and the word Satan appears 0 times. The book found the one occurrence and built a theology on it. Bailey's 3 channels, the church, the Masonic fraternity, education, that is genuinely her cosmology, near verbatim, confirmed as a reading of Bailey. Alice Bailey, president of the Theosophical Society, she wasn't. She fought for the American section, lost, was pushed out, and built her own school. Her whole movement exists because she never got the office this book hands her. Contradicted. And the sentence the item exists for David Rockefeller in Lucis Management. We pulled the trust's officer registries decades deep. No Rockefeller ever. The item's one Rockefeller sentence is its one empty sentence. Unsupported. The home life of the Rockefellers, says the chapter, is decidedly different. Over 100 homes, land across South America, and a ranch called Monte Sacro in Venezuela, 2 mansions in Washington, a 32-room Fifth Avenue duplex, Seal Harbor, Maine, the great estate at Pocantico Hills, resorts in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean, 2,500 house servants. Check the list before the totals. Nearly every named thing is real. Pocantico vast, the Washington houses real, Monte Sacro real, Seal Harbor real, the island resorts real, and Lawrence's trade. Even the apartment is nearly right. 30 rooms, though a triplex, not a duplex. The named map, mixed, mostly true and slightly bent. The totals wrapped around it. 100 homes, 2,500 servants. Appear in no inventory, no probate, no biography anywhere. Unsupported. Real map. Invented census. The Nelson tax shape again. And the hidden tunnels the book gives them. Kaikwit really does have tunnels. Service passages, fountain works, and an underground art gallery the public can tour. Hidden is a strong word for corridors with guided tickets. Mixed. Then the family dead, and we slow down, because these were real people. Winthrop, who is homosexual, enjoyed living in Arkansas with his black male friend. He reportedly had the world's largest porn collection. Check. And this sneer has a traceable author. It first circulated as a smear in Winthrop Rockefeller's 1966 Arkansas campaign, planted by the segregationist opposition. The black male friend had a name and a job. Jimmy Hudson, his farm manager of 2 decades. What the record actually shows is the bravest public life in this whole chapter. The first Republican governor of Arkansas since Reconstruction. The only Southern governor when Martin Luther King was murdered, who stood in public mourning. On his own Capitol steps, hand in hand with black clergy, singing "We Shall Overcome." The man who, leaving office, commuted every death sentence in the state. The book found a segregationist campaign smear in its lost notes and printed it as occult research. Contradicted, and the sneer tells you whose notes they were. Winifred Rockefeller Emeny, Nelson's cousin, murdered her 2 children and committed suicide. This one is true. Greenwich, Connecticut, March 1951. Winifred Emeny, a granddaughter of William Rockefeller, took her own life and her 2 daughters. Confirmed. A real family tragedy, and we leave it where the record leaves it, with the grief, not the innuendo. And Michael Rockefeller. He died, says the book, when he tried to bribe New Guinea tribesmen to go headhunt and make shrunken heads for him. And the natives, tired of Michael, headhunted Michael himself. Check, carefully. November 1961. Michael, 23, Nelson's son, was collecting art on the Asmat coast of New Guinea when his overloaded catamaran capsized off a river mouth. After a night on the hull, he swam for shore. His companion, rescued later, watched him go. He was never found. None of it involves bribery. He was buying carvings, shields, drums, the great ancestor poles that stand in the Metropolitan Museum today. And shrunken heads are not even this continent's practice. The Asmat took heads. The shrinking belongs to South America. The book's version, contradicted. But the darkest reading of his death is not the book's invention. Decades of investigation assembled serious evidence that Michael reached shore and was killed by men of a village avenging the Dutch colonial shooting from 3 years before, and that the colonial government buried the story. Never proven, but investigated, sourced, and darker than the cannibal joke the book made of it. If Michael was killed, he died for the sins of an empire, not for shopping. Mixed. The paragraph ends in ritual. The family's leaders die violent ritual deaths. One who died in Arizona is known to have been cremated. Known by whom? A Rockefeller did die in Arizona, John D. Jr. Tucson, 1960. Pneumonia, age 86, interred in the family plot at Pocantico, one of the most documented quiet deaths in American history. If that is the ritual, it was performed by a hospital and an obituary desk, UNFALSIFIABLE. Now the chapter stops being about Rockefellers for a page and a half while the author explains his project. 13 magical bloodlines, multiple personalities throughout, kings and queens of darkness, a council of 13 under a council of 9 under an inner 3. None of it touches a checkable noun. UNFALSIFIABLE, the lot, stamped once for the whole org chart. But 4 claims in the insert have real names on them. First, a hidden lineage, the author says, stayed secret until 3 investigators. He prints Lincoln, Lee, and Bagent were spoon-fed leads. He recommends their book Holy Blood, Holy Grail as the model for uncovering bloodlines. Episode 5 of this series lived inside that story. Holy Blood, Holy Grail was built on the Priory of Sion papers, documents planted in the French National Library by a convicted fraudster named Pierre Plantard, a hoax so dead that Plantard renounced it under oath in September of '93, 2 years before this book went to print recommending it. The model is a proven forgery, and the author misspells its investigator. Contradicted as a method. Second, in southern Belgium, the author writes, there is a castle, the Mothers of Darkness Castle, where a little baby is sacrificed daily, and where a handwritten history of the world is being written. He offers to point it out on a map. Daily sacrifice is 365 infant deaths a year, every year, in a small, densely policed European country, with no missing person pattern, no witness, no record. And the castle this legend always lands on has an unbroken, boring, documented chain of private owners. The claim's own paper trail leads back to exactly one source, this author's earlier book, Unsupported. And note what lives inside the castle, the handwritten book that would prove everything, which is also the only place his next character exists. Michael Augustus Martinelli von Braun-Reinhold, the most powerful Satanist in the world, keeper of 66 satanic brides. That name appears in no archive, register, newspaper, court record, or index anywhere on Earth, outside this author's own books. A superlative Satanist no record has ever heard of, vouched for by a book no one can see, in a castle no one may enter. 2 unverifiable claims propping each other up. Unsupported. Third and fourth, the insert's parting shots. Abraham Lincoln was a secret Rothschild descendant and secret head of the Rosicrucians, and Adolf Hitler was of the Rothschild lineage too. Lincoln's ancestry is among the most exhaustively documented in America. The line runs to Samuel Lincoln, a weaver's apprentice who landed in Massachusetts in 1637. Generations of genealogists, hostile and friendly, have walked every branch. There is no Rothschild in it, and no secret office either. Contradicted. Hitler. One source. The gallows memoir of Hans Frank, his own lawyer, demolished by every biographer who touched it. The grandmother the story requires never worked where the story needs her. Contradicted. Two of history's most examined men, drafted into a bloodline by a paragraph that cannot spell its own witnesses. One line in the pile is adjacent to something true. Rockefeller, the author says in passing, sold Hitler oil during the war via Spain to keep it going longer. The documented core is genuinely ugly. Standard Oil of New Jersey. The company, long past the family's founding control, kept cartel agreements with the Nazi chemical giant IG Farben, sold the Luftwaffe tetraethyl lead in the late 30s, and sat on synthetic rubber patents into wartime. A Senate committee dragged it into daylight in 1942, and its chairman, a senator named Harry Truman, called what he saw treasonous. The papers ran the phrase rubber treason. That is real, on the record, and damning of a corporation. The family had left the company's board a generation earlier, and the specific sentence the book wrote, "The family, selling oil through Spain to prolong the war," has never been established by any scholar, including the hostile ones. Mixed, a real corporate scandal, inflated into an unproven family treason. The true version needed no inflation. And now the chapter starts over. A continuation announces page 111 of the series of articles on the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines, and immediately, the confession from our cold open in the author's own preface. Much of my own material on the Rockefeller family was lost this year, and I don't have the time to go back and research it again. There it is. The most documented rich family on earth, public archive, congressional disclosures, a century of biography, and the author's stated method in print is, my files are gone, I'll wing it. Everything tonight should be read under that sentence. It is the most honest line in the book. What does winging it look like? The next section answers, and the answer is a surprise. The first notorious Rockefeller, William Avery Rockefeller, born 1810, corrupt, amoral, a bigamist, a fugitive from a rape charge, a card sharp flush with gold coins, a practitioner of magic. 9 episodes have trained you to smell that paragraph as invention. Check it. Bigamist, confirmed, a second marriage under a false name while Eliza lived. The rape charge, confirmed, indicted in upstate New York in 1849. He left the state and never faced trial. The false name, confirmed and better than the book knows. For decades, America's richest family had a founding father living as Dr. William Livingston, a traveling medicine show man selling cancer cures to farm towns, and when he died, he was buried under the false name, while his son, the richest man alive, kept the secret. The press hunted the vanished father for years. Devil Bill is standard, sourced, mainstream biography now, confirmed nearly the whole indictment. The chapter's most lurid-sounding paragraph is its best documented one. Except the magic. Devil Bill's documented dark art was fraud. He once worked a town by pretending to be deaf, not sorcery. UNSUPPORTED, the occult. And his wife. The book calls Eliza Davison an extremely cruel woman. The record shows a devout, patient, frugal woman who held 6 children together through her husband's vanishing years, and who endured the astonishing detail the book garbles. When she married Bill, his mistress was already part of the household, an arrangement he imposed. True fact. Reversed villain. Contradicted. On her character. Why does this paragraph check out when the Luce's paragraph didn't? Because it wasn't written from lost notes. The Devil Bill story is in the published biographies, the author's own bibliography lists. Open book, accurate. From memory. Castles in Belgium. The wager isn't subtle anymore. The section closes with John D. rising on ruthlessness and the secret help of other Illuminati families, the Payseurs among them. The ruthlessness is documented beyond argument, and we will meet it properly in a moment. The Payseurs are a family whose imperial genealogy was manufactured in a different 90s book, and when descendants finally ran the legend through a DNA test at the turn of the millennium, the royal ancestor evaporated into an ordinary Carolina farm family. No historian of Standard Oil has ever found a Payseur in a ledger. Contradicted. And over 100 Rockefeller families, the chapter says, live at Pocantico. The estate is real and enormous. Its actual census of family households has never been a tenth of that. CONTRADICTED, the number. Page 112. My notes are lost, says the author. The second confession. But suffice it to say, and then, unencumbered, the page produces the chapter's wildest 90 seconds. Have you ever noticed that Rockefeller's Standard Oil uses the satanic pentagram in a circle as their logo? Check. Standard Oil's emblem was a torch. Its successors wear an oval, a pair of chevrons, a flying red horse, interlocking letters. Walk the whole corporate family tree, and there is no pentagram on any branch, ever. The one famous five-pointed star at an American gas station belongs to Texaco, a company that was never Standard Oil and never Rockefeller's. The chapter's flagship visual claim can be refuted from the forecourt of a filling station. Contradicted. Just 3 of countless Rockefeller companies, the page continues, are Texas Instruments, General Electric, and Eastman Kodak. The Rockefellers also control Boeing, where mind control programming takes place, and Delta, whose triangle is a satanic symbol. The shareholder record. No Rockefeller controlling stake in any of the 5. Not in the filings, not even in the 70s congressional ownership studies, which are the closest this theory ever came to a document. Those studies found the true kernel, the trust department of Chase Manhattan, David Rockefeller's bank, among the top institutional holders of many blue chips, a few custodial percent apiece, other people's money. A Rockefeller-run bank was a big fiduciary. Control of Boeing it is not. Contradicted, Colonel noted. The mind control on the factory floor. An anonymous tip about an unfalsifiable program. UNFALSIFIABLE. And Delta Satanic Triangle. The delta is the 4th letter of the Greek alphabet. If a triangle is a confession, geometry class is a coven. We don't stamp triangles. Then, notice how often President Bush went to Maine, meaning, the book implies, the Rockefeller compound at Seal Harbor. George Bush went to Maine because the Bush family has owned Walker's Point at Kennebunkport, 100 miles down the coast, since around 1902. It is one of the most photographed private homes in America. The insinuation drives past the wrong house. Contradicted and quietly wonderful. Now the page hardens. The Rockefellers, says the chapter, were involved in the creation of the FBI, so the FBI has always been an arm of the Illuminati, and today it runs official programs that kidnap children for sacrifice. The founding first, the Bureau was created in 1908 by Attorney General Charles Bonaparte under President Theodore Roosevelt, 4 days after an appeals court threw out the government's $29 million fine against Standard Oil. In the season, Roosevelt was denouncing the criminals of great wealth. The government that created the FBI was, at that precise moment, the Rockefellers, chief legal enemy on earth. Contradicted, the founding is not merely un-Rockefeller, it is anti-Rockefeller. The kidnap programs, the chapter grounds them in the finders. A strange Washington commune investigated in 1987 when 6 unkempt children were found with 2 men in Florida. Customs memos speculated darkly. The charges were dropped within weeks, and every later review, including the file released decades on, found no trafficking, no ritual abuse, no program. The book even cites the National Magazine story about the case as a cover-up, when that story is what put the wild allegations into print at all. The evidence is a conspiracy whenever it disagrees. Unsupported. Franklin, the same. A real Nebraska scandal. A real embezzler. A real credit union. In Omaha, though the book files it as a savings and loan in Lincoln, where 2 grand juries examined the abuse ring allegations and called them, in their words, a carefully crafted hoax. Real crime, real ruined lives, no Illuminati. Mixed, at best. And then the sentence this episode has been walking toward. To prove the FBI harvests children, the chapter prints a list, 6 names, offered as agents who abduct children for satanic sacrifice, on the word of one unidentified convert. 4 of the 6 names appear nowhere in the checkable world. The 2 that do are real FBI men, and look at which 2. One ran the Bureau's Nebraska field office in the Franklin years, the investigator from the very scandal this page just cited, and the other is Ken Lanning. Kenneth Lanning was the FBI Behavioral Science Unit's specialist in crimes against children, the Bureau's own in-house examiner of exactly these stories. Through the whole satanic panic, police departments across America sent him their cases, the tunnels, the altars, the covens, and Lanning did the unglamorous thing. He checked. In 1992, he published the finding that made him the panic's most hated man. Hundreds of cases, and the physical evidence for a satanic murder network came to nothing. Real abusers were ordinary and everywhere, and the devil cult was a phantom, eating the resources meant to catch them. 3 years later, this book prints his name on a list of satanic kidnappers. No date, no child, no case, no evidence. The gravest accusation a human being can make, aimed at the one agent whose career was spent checking the accusation. The auditor became the defendant the moment the audit came back empty, unsupported. And of every sentence this series has stamped in 9 chapters, this is the one that best explains why we stamp. The author's notes were lost. Ken Lanning's never were. They are called the record, and tonight the record is the only reason his name gets spoken next to the truth. 2 claims left, both about Nelson. When Congress wanted to investigate the CIA, a commission headed by Rockefeller investigated instead. Some investigation. Check. Ford did create a commission in January 1975, chaired by the vice president, and the skeptics had a point. The White House really did cut an 86-page section on assassination plots from its report. But the premise fails twice over. Congress handed off nothing. It launched its own investigation 23 days later, the Church Committee, which went far harder and stands as the canonical account. And the supposedly toothless Rockefeller report is the document that first told the public the CIA had drugged unwitting American citizens, the disclosure that unraveled into the MKUltra hearings, and that a government scientist had gone out a New York hotel window after being dosed. The whitewash put the mind control program on the front page. Mixed. And the punchline runs backwards. The closest thing to a real documented mind control scandal in this chapter was disclosed by the Rockefeller in it. And finally, rather than risk election, a brilliant coup d'état put Nelson into the vice presidency. The mechanism has a name, the 25th Amendment, ratified in public in 1967. Nelson was nominated on television, grilled for 4 months. The hearings that disclosed his taxes, remember, confirmed by public roll call votes, and dumped from the ticket 14 months later when his party's right wing objected. A man who sought the presidency by election 3 times, lost 3 times, and was fired by his own party is many things. A coup is not one of them. Contradicted. The final page returns to the grand thesis. The decisions and directions of the United States in the 20th century are the result of countless orders which the Rockefellers have given to their underlings. Countless is the operative word. None are enumerated, so none can be checked. Unsupported as a closing thesis. And then the bibliography, which is the chapter's honest confession of method, Gary Allen's Rockefeller file from the John Birch orbit. The book we found tonight, that this chapter's education section quietly paraphrases. A 50s pamphleteer, Eustace Mullins, one real family biography, and, listed with a straight face between the books, interview with an ex-Rockefeller monarch slave. 3 generations of anti-Rockefeller pamphlets, 1 biography, and 1 anonymous interview about a program no document has ever recorded. The chapter did not fail to check its claims. It was built from materials in which checking was never the custom. So that is the chapter Springmeier wrote. Now briefly, because we promised, the chapter he didn't. Everything that follows is documented history. Consider it the control group. What a damning Rockefeller chapter looks like when the notes aren't lost. He never mentions the Cleveland Massacre, 6 weeks in 1872 when John D. Rockefeller, armed with a secret railroad rebate scheme, absorbed nearly 24 rival refineries and made Standard Oil possible. Never mentions Ida Tarbell, the daughter of an oil region producer squeezed by that very scheme, who answered it with 19 magazine installments of documented history that helped bring the whole trust down. Never mentions the Supreme Court of the United States ordering the trust dissolved in 1911, the actual adjudicated conspiracy in the Rockefeller record, nor the black joke of the sequel. Rockefeller owned 1/4 of every fragment. The fragments' shares roughly doubled, and the breakup left him the richest man in the world. Never mentions Ludlow. April 20th, 1914, when guardsmen and mine guards machine-gunned and burned a strikers' tent colony at the family's Colorado Coal Company, and 11 children and 2 women suffocated in a dirt pit beneath a burning tent. The atrocity the family spent a generation atoning for, and the reason modern corporate public relations exists. Never mentions the Flexner Report and the river of Rockefeller money behind medicine's great consolidation, which built the modern medical school and, along the way, closed 5 of the country's 7 black medical colleges, a wound researchers were still tallying in the 2020s. Never mentions Jekyll Island. November 1910, when Senator Nelson Aldrich, whose daughter had married John D. Jr. and whose grandson Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller carries his name through this chapter, took a handful of Wall Street's most powerful men south by private railcar, under first names only, to a Georgia island to draft a central banking plan. A real secret meeting confessed in print by a participant whose draft Congress then rejected and rewrote in daylight into the Federal Reserve Act. The one true secret meeting story in the whole Rockefeller canon, and the chapter that promises secret history skips it. Even the occult file has a real entry. The book misses. Percy Rockefeller, Skull and Bones, Yale, class of 1900, the family's one documented secret society, absent from the chapter about the family's secret societies. Why skip all of it? Because every one of those stories carries the same flaw. It is documented. Courts, commissions, testimony, memoirs, and documentation cuts both ways. It convicts the family of rebates, monopoly, union breaking, and arrogance. And it acquits them of Satan. The real record is worse for the Rockefellers than this chapter is, and useless to it. The scoreboard. 72 claims, read and checked. The Rockefellers, a top 13 satanic bloodline, UNFALSIFIABLE, around 190 Rockefellers. Unsupported. 500 families feed the Illuminati. Unsupported. Hundreds of hidden trusts within trusts. Unsupported. Nelson paid no income tax in 1970. Confirmed. Nelson the richest man in America. Mixed. The Sealantic Fund, as copied from the directory. Confirmed. Sealantic's work shifted to other channels. Confirmed. The Trilateral Grant in the Index. Confirmed. The Pope coordinates with the Illuminati. UNFAL, SIFIA, BLE. Union Theological Seminary, Rockefeller funded. Confirmed. Eugene Cox investigated, sickened, and died. Confirmed. Cox was killed for investigating. Unsupported. Reese was destroyed by Rockefeller henchmen. Mixed. The Worms are conclusions, as quoted. Mixed. 2/3 of university endowment funding. Unsupported. The NEA ran on Rockefeller and Carnegie money. Contradicted. The 1934 laissez-faire quotation. Mixed. A Rockefeller sits on Grollier's board. Mixed. The 1945 speech happened. Confirmed. The speech announced a living God. Contradicted. Heiskell, Fisher, and the sixth level. UNFALSIFIABLE. The LaVey publicity trail. Mixed. The press took its LaVey orders from the family. Unsupported. Billy Graham, 33rd degree Mason. Contradicted. Chase Manhattan bankrolled the crusade. Mixed. Charles Taze Russell, Knights Templar. Contradicted. The Wasserman Putnam von Daniken chain. Contradicted. Marvel's son of Satan, ordered from the boardroom. Unsupported. The Rockefellers loved and funded Reverend Moon. Unsupported. The famous men who endorsed Moon. Mixed. Maury Strong, the family's Gaia prophet. Mixed. The Psychic Fellowship resume. Confirmed. Psychology is led mainly by occultists. Unsupported. The Federal Council ran on Rockefeller money. Mixed. Lucis Trust was founded as Lucifer Publishing. Confirmed. Page 107 names Lucifer. Confirmed. Alice Bailey, President of the Theosophical Society. Contradicted. Sanat Kumara, a scrambling of Satan. Contradicted. Bailey's three channels. Church, lodge, school. Confirmed. David Rockefeller manages Lucis Trust. Unsupported. The named family properties. Mixed. 100 homes, 2,500 servants. Unsupported. Hidden tunnels under the estates. Mixed. Winthrop's secret life and his porn collection. Contradicted. The Greenwich tragedy of 1951. Confirmed. Michael Rockefeller bribed headhunters. Contradicted. Michael's death hides something darker. Mixed. A ritual death, cremated in Arizona. UNFALSIFIABLE. The Kings, Queens, and Councils of Darkness. UNFALSIFIABLE. Holy Blood, Holy Grail as a model of research. Contradicted. The Mothers of Darkness Castle and its daily sacrifice. Unsupported. The world's most powerful Satanist and his 66 brides. Unsupported. Lincoln, a Rothschild and secret Rosicrucian chief. Contradicted. Hitler, a Rothschild. Contradicted. The family sold Hitler oil through Spain. Mixed. Devil Bill. The bigamy, the flight, the alias, the cons. Confirmed. Devil Bill practiced magic. Unsupported. Eliza Davison, an extremely cruel woman. Contradicted. The Pesos raised the Rockefellers. Contradicted. 100 families at Pocantico. Contradicted. The Standard Oil pentagram. Contradicted. Texas Instruments, GE, Kodak, Boeing, Delta, controlled. Contradicted. Monarch programming at a Boeing plant. UNFALSIFIABLE. Bush kept visiting Rockefeller, Maine. Contradicted. The Rockefellers created the FBI. Contradicted. The FBI kidnaps children for sacrifice. Unsupported. The Finders were the harvesting arm. Unsupported. Franklin was an Illuminati cover-up. Mixed. The Six Names and Ken Lanning. Unsupported. The Rockefeller Commission. A pure whitewash. Mixed. Nelson was installed by coup. Contradicted. Countless orders to underlings. Unsupported. The tally, 13 confirmed, 16 mixed, 20 contradicted, 17 unsupported, 6 unfalsifiable. 20 contradictions. The most this series has ever stamped on a single chapter. Last episode's record was 15. And notice the split, because it is the cleanest in the series. Nearly every confirmation tonight was copied from the Foundation Directory, the Grants Index, the published biographies. Nearly every contradiction was composed. From memory, after the notes were lost, the book is a photocopier with a demon painted on the lid. Here is what the Rockefeller chapter really taught us. In episode 7, we named the book's method sorting, Real Facts Swept into Imaginary Piles. In episode 8, we caught it transfusing, whole pages copied from another man's hoax. Tonight, the author showed us the machine itself. With a source open on the desk, he transcribes competently, dollars, addresses, spellings and all. With the notes lost, the same typewriter produces baby farms in Belgium, pentagrams no gas station ever wore, and an FBI agent turned into a monster for the crime of checking. The book is exactly as good as whatever happens to be open beside it. That is the engine of this whole genre, and this chapter, uniquely, was honest enough to say so in its own preface. And as always, the documented story was better. A con man father selling cancer cures under a false name while his son built the greatest monopoly on earth. 6 weeks in Cleveland that swallowed an industry. A woman with 19 magazine installments who did more damage to Standard Oil than every secret society tract ever printed. A burning tent colony in Colorado. A real secret meeting on a Georgia island confessed in print, rewritten in public law. And a governor of Arkansas who emptied death row on his way out the door and stood on the Capitol steps singing, "We shall overcome." Remembered by this book only for a smear his enemies wrote. No 13 thrones. Just money, method, cruelty, conscience, and record, documented and stranger than the myth. Next time, the summit of the whole literature, the Rothschilds. 50 pages, the longest chapter in the book, so we are reading it in 3 parts. Part 1, Frankfurt, 5 Sons, and the Invention of a Legend. The reading continues. Bring the red pen.